Decision 2016. I want a show of hands. Who's nervous because you think I'm going to talk about politics? Anybody? No? Well, if this big of a room, this many people, there's going to be people on every side of the spectrum when it comes to this political season, right? It's a really polarizing would be a gentle word, I think, for what's been happening. What if you have like a phone, if you don't live under a rock, if you have a newspaper, anything, you've seen just all kinds of semi-crazy stuff. And so we're all kind of on different sides. There's going to be a lot of different opinions in here, in the room, I'm sure, about it. But the good thing is that I think we can all agree on one thing, and that's there's lots and lots of really good material for bad lip reading videos. Have you guys seen this? Okay, if you haven't, just watch and you'll agree with me after we're done. Seriously. I love these videos. Like, I've been in tears watching these videos. So no matter where we are on what side of the spectrum, I'm sure that some of you have already decided what candidate you're going to vote for. There's others in this room that are still debating. Maybe a husband and wife are on different sides of the coin. Some of you are waiting for that third candidate, right? Like you're still waiting. This guy is going to come out and he's going to be awesome. And then some of you, I know, have already said you're moving to Canada. Like, after November's over, you've already like set stuff in place. You have the visa. But no matter what we choose, right, as far as presidential candidates and all that kind of political stuff, there's one decision that we're going to talk about today, which I think is a lot more important than who we choose to be our president, and that is whether or not we'll choose Jesus this year. And that's what we want to wrestle with in this series. That's what we're going to wrestle with today. So if you turn with me to Luke 9, if you have a Bible, an iPhone, an iPad, some sort of other device with an I in front of it, if you turn to that, we're going to be in Luke 9 today. And it's going to be in front of the screen. We're just going to kind of walk through a little bit of a backstory of what's happening in this passage. So this is the Jews are living amongst the Romans in this world, and so they've been waiting for the Messiah, right? They know the Messiah is going to come, and they're wanting the Messiah to come and just kind of like rock everything. So when Jesus comes on the scene and he starts doing miracles and doing all this awesome stuff, they're thinking, okay, he's the guy, and he's going to flip it on its head, and that's kind of the lens that they're looking at everything through. So in Luke 9, 1 through 2, first, he sends out his campaign staff, right? He's got the disciples. He's sending them out. They're spreading the gospel. They're talking about what he's all about, his mission, and they start healing people, and it's going really well. So they're doing an awesome job at spreading the word. And then Jesus starts healing people of their sicknesses and diseases, right? This is the most kicking healthcare plan ever, right? I mean, it's awesome, right? Have you seen any other presidential candidate like heal people? I have not, right? So that's what Jesus is just doing that, and it's awesome. People are responding. And then in verses 16 through 17, he feeds over 5,000 people. That's great. Like, I mean, he's rocking this awesome campaign. Who doesn't like a free lunch? And you can see the campaign rallies, right? You can kind of see the people gathering around Jesus. In chapter 8, before this, it actually says that the crowds were pressing against him so hard, they almost crushed him. Like, that's how much they want to be close to Jesus. And you can hear the people. Can you hear them with me? Like, Jesus. Like, they're chanting it louder and louder as he's doing things. He does miracles. They're with him, right? So Jesus has them in his pocket, right? He's got them right here. And in verse 23, it says, this is Jesus talking to the crowd. He says, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross daily, and follow me. And they're all like, what? And I'm thinking, well, you had him, right, Jesus? And then it seems like every time people are right with him, and they like as soon as he's got a big crowd, he says something that seems completely crazy to them, right? And he's saying, listen, he's pushing back. And why? Like, that's what we really want to wrestle with today, is like, why is Jesus doing this? Because he's not about attracting large crowds of excited followers, right? And most presidential candidates, they're hitting like the middle ground, like they want to kind of please everybody over on this side, and I'm going to say something that makes them feel happy, then I'm over here and make some stuff that make you guys feel really happy, and just don't want to step on any toes. But not Jesus. He's like, okay, here's the truth, here's what you need to do, and he just lays it out. Because he doesn't want enthusiastic admirers, right? He wants people that are moving closer to him, and that are following right with him. So that's kind of the picture we have. So to kind of help illustrate that, I'm going to just sort of look at what it would look like if you were a fan, right? This is like prepping for game day, like big NFL game. This is like the ultimate fan, okay? Is he on there? Yes, he is. Okay, this guy, right? So let's say he's been following the Bears for the last 20 years, and he's going to track back to his like when he first started following them in college. And that morning, like that day, they won, right? So he got up in that morning and he ate ramen for breakfast. So guess what? It's game day. It's ramen for breakfast. He wore his lucky underwear because they won, right? So guess what? He's been wearing the same underwear on game day for the last 20 years. And maybe they're not washed. I don't know, because they weren't then, right? And so he's got like this whole routine of what he did that day. He's doing the same thing. He's tailgating, and when he shows up at the game, he's got like full body paint. He's got the cape. He's got everything. When he shows up at the game, he's like, my team is going to win. I'm in it, completely committed. And then over on this side, you have the NFL player, okay? There's a slight difference between the fan and the player. The player, in the month of August, he's been like killing himself literally at training camp. Maybe 3 days off the entire time, 6 o'clock in the morning till late at night. He's got just enough time to call his wife and hit the pillow before he's passed out to do it again another day. He's doing physical training. They're pushing themselves. He gets injured, okay, fix it so he can train, push. And when he shows up at game day, his body, he is like a machine, and he is as physically ready as he possibly could be. So we have the fan who's, they're like, both of them want the team to win, right? The player wants to win, the fan wants them to win, but there's a little bit different a level of commitment between the two guys. And that's what we clearly see, that difference between a fan and a follower. In verse 23, let's read that again. Jesus says to the crowd, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross daily, and follow me. So what does that mean? What's Jesus actually saying? You have to turn from your selfish ways, deny yourself, and take up your cross. He says that's what it means to follow me. So I think of my wife and I, our marriage. So I love sci-fi movies. I love anything with aliens, monsters, stuff like that. I don't care how dorky it is. I think it's great. And I love it. My wife likes stuff like Steel Magnolias, where you cry and someone dies, and I don't understand this, right? So I don't get that. But Kim, if I want to watch, she watches sci-fi movies with me because she loves me. That's kind of her denying her selfish ways, taking up her cross, and I'll watch Steel Magnolias with her because I love her. That's the only reason why I would watch something like that with my wife. When we think about maybe a little bit deeper of an example is when Kim and I had this conversation a couple years ago. We said, man, I think we need to move. I think we need to move somewhere probably far away from our parents. It's going to end up being and plant a church. And she said, okay, this is comfortable, this is what's convenient, this is what I like, but because I love you and I'm with you and when I trust God, I'm going to do that. So she stepped out. Like, that's a little bit deeper, right, than watching Steel Magnolias, although that's still significant, okay? So taking up our cross means that our main priorities can no longer be my comfort, right? It no longer can be my convenience or my control. And then Jesus says, taking up your cross is something I want you to do daily. It's actually giving us this image of a journey. It's saying that I want you to take up your cross today, and I want you to do it tomorrow, and I want you to do it the next day, and kind of step farther and farther along with me. So when Kim and I were married, June 25th, 2005, brownie points, almost 11 years ago, this summer, we said I do, right? And when we said I do, we meant it, right? I meant I love you, I do, I'm with you, right? But that's been a process that we have to still say I do today, and I'll still have to say I do tomorrow. Are you tracking with me? It's something that I couldn't just say I do 10 years ago and then not do anything that had to do with my wife over the last decade, and that relationship wouldn't work. It had to be a constant process of saying, I'm with you. Yes, I'm with you. We're doing this together. It's a process that we're on together. So what does that kind of look like? I want to give us some language to see what that might look like in our life if we said I do to Jesus at one point, but maybe what it looks like if we're sort of slipping away a little bit instead of following and walking with him, but being more of a fan. It kind of sounds like this. Maybe it's, yes, Jesus, I want to follow you, but don't you understand, my kid is a soccer star. He's amazing at baseball or volleyball or whatever you want to fill in the blank with. My kid is really, really good at this. Really good. And we want to support our kids, right? And Jesus, you love kids. So, games are on Sundays a lot of times, and maybe rehearsals are during the week, or practices are during the week, and that kind of interferes with small group and stuff. But my kids are only young for a little while, so I have to pour into all this stuff, right? You don't understand how awesome my kid is at that. And yes, Jesus, I want to follow you, but if I don't work this many hours, I can't provide for my family, right? I can't provide to keep these cars that we have and the house that we have and the things that I expect for my children to be able to have and kind of give them a nice boost to college. So, I mean, I'd love to kind of sacrifice some of that time. And I know you say to be with my family, but I am providing for my family by doing this. And yes, Jesus, I want to follow you, but I'm really busy leading your church. Maybe that's one that hits closer to home. I don't have time to help that person because I'm really busy leading all these people closer to you. We have really great intentions, right, in the beginning when we said yes to Jesus, but then kind of slowly, one step at a time, maybe one decision at a time, we step farther and farther away. So this is the question we really want to wrestle with today. Am I a fan or am I a follower? Like, no question about saying, man, I genuinely love God. I want to follow him, but you're stuck. Maybe you're just sort of in this mode where you're plateauing and you feel like there's been, if you look over the course of your life, there's been no movement along with Jesus. The question is, if all we're ever doing is talking about Jesus, and we have like the fish bumper sticker on our car, and we love to go to church, but there's never spots in our life where we're moving closer to him, and we're kind of giving up some comfort and some control and some convenience, then are we really following Jesus? So we're going to look at 3 fans in Luke 9. In verse 57, we find fan number 1. This is what it says. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. So I love what Jesus says. I always think his responses sometimes sound so weird if we're not in that context, in that culture. So this guy says, Jesus, I want to follow you. Like, I want to be with you. And Jesus says, great, I'm homeless. Right? And you're saying, like, I'm not tracking with you, right? But we're seeing, if we see Jesus looking into this man's life, and he's saying, okay, I want to follow you, and Jesus looks into his heart, and he sees that this man's really saying, Jesus, I want to follow you if it's comfortable, right? Like, I want to follow you on Sunday and maybe like a day during the week, but can I have Monday through Thursday, like, just be mine? And especially Friday night, can that just be mine and we don't even talk about it, Jesus, right? Like, I want to follow you, but I don't want to give up these things. Like, he doesn't want to give up his special camel, or maybe it's that car that we have, right? And Jesus is saying, no, like, if you're going to follow me, you're going to have to sacrifice some things, right? You have to be prepared to give up this stuff. There's no guarantees. I can't guarantee you're still going to be able to have that. It's the deny yourself, the take up your cross part that we just talked about, that Jesus says. So the question is, am I really following? If I only follow when it's comfortable, I'm not a follower, I'm a fan. Here's the next fan number 2. He said to another man, follow me. But he replied, Lord, first let me go bury my father. And Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Okay, so it seems really cold, right? I'm looking at this just at a glance. This doesn't sound like the Jesus that I know, right? He says, Jesus, I want to follow you. And Jesus says, that's great. Like he said, but can I bury my dad first? And Jesus says, well, no, let the dead bury their own dead. And so if we just look at it like that, we think, well, maybe this doesn't make a lot of sense. But in reality, we don't know if the guy's father is dead, if he's maybe sick on his deathbed, or maybe he's completely healthy and he's just saying, hey, when my dad dies, and then I take care of that business, because that's my job, right? As a son, culturally, it was his job to take care of the father and to seal up the estate, to take care of all that stuff. Then I'll follow you when that's kind of checked off, and then I'll be kind of freed up to do all this awesome work you want me to do. And the thing that we have to realize too is, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say his dad really just passed away, all right? And Jesus says, no, you let the dead bury their own dead. We know that the process that it took to take care of that wasn't just a couple days, it wasn't just a couple weeks, but it would take the course of several months to bury, to finish up all the family business, the estate. So Jesus says, no, let's do something now, follow me now. So the man's saying, I want to follow when it's convenient. And Jesus says, my followers realign their priorities. I feel like that one kind of hits close to home sometimes. So if I only want to follow when it's convenient, I'm not a follower, I'm a fan. Sometimes it interrupts what we have going on. Fan number 3. So still another said, I will follow you, Lord. So this guy goes to Jesus, I will follow you. But first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Jesus replied, no one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. Again, you're like, man, Jesus, he just wants to say goodbye to his parents. Jesus is saying, listen, okay, this is the farming metaphor. right? And I'm not a farmer. I don't know if we have any farmers in the room, but it's going to be pretty clear. So you think of the old school plow, right? It's being pulled by an ox, and he's saying, if you put your hand to the plow, if you're moving in this direction, and you're like, hey, Mom, I'm talking, like, how's that row going to look if I'm doing this? It's just like if you're mowing the grass and something like runs and you're like, oh, yeah. Like, it's not great. Like, I don't want to follow up after the guy that plowed the field that way, right? And it looks just like this. For some reason, when my wife and I are talking, she wants my eyes, like, focused on her. She doesn't want me, like, on my cell phone doing something or on the computer or watching TV. Like, I don't know why she doesn't think it's a great conversation when I'm saying, yes, yeah, I got it. I'm there. Anyone ever had this happen? And yes, you have. And she says, what did I just say? Right? This is exactly what I do with my kids, right? And why is that? Why? Because she wants my focus, right? If she knows that if my eyes are on her, right, that she actually has my attention, like I'm with her. It's like the horse with the blinders, like she's got me, right? And that's what Jesus is talking about. He's saying, like, are you with me? Like, do I have your full attention? My followers, the guy is saying, I'll follow you if I can keep control, Jesus. And Jesus says, no. My followers commit fully to me. Like, I'm your focus. So if I'm following, but that depends on my retaining control, I'm not a follower. I'm a fan. So convenience, comfort, control, these are all things that we have to give up if we're following Jesus. We have to have open hands with, right? I have a really good friend that, man, this guy is a stud. He's an awesome dad. He and his wife are really cool people. I just love them. And we've known them for a while as a family. And over the course of his life, I've kind of, like, when we got to first know each other, I'd say that he loved Jesus and he liked to follow Jesus, but there were times when his commitment or his complete giving to Jesus was a little less than something, less than, like, complete. And I didn't realize that. I don't think I really ever noticed that until I saw a marked difference in his life. Like, I can almost draw a line back to a time period, and all of a sudden I saw him go from, and like he was saying, like, well, this isn't really comfortable, but I think this is what Jesus wants me to do. And he took a step this way. And they said, this isn't really convenient. I mean, honestly, I could just see this in his life so clear, and he took another step towards Jesus. And he was just open-handedly giving Jesus comfort, control, convenience. He was just walking alongside of Jesus, step by step by step. And why is that? Because he was no longer just being a fan. Like, he wasn't just over here saying, Jesus, that's awesome. I love you. I love what you're doing. Like, the way that you're working in that guy's life, that's cool. Like, hey, Jesus, that's great. That doesn't feel good. I'm just going to, you're doing a good job, though. I'm glad you're doing that. He was saying, no, I'm going to step with Jesus until he was actually walking alongside of him. And that's what the urging today, that's what I urge you to do today. That's what all of us to do, right? As I've been wrestling with this week, and I've just been thinking about it, I'm like, man, this is something that applies to all of us. I think we're all in different spots, but today we have the decision, and that's to choose to follow Jesus. So some of you today, I honestly believe there's going to be people in this room, but today is the day that you need to choose to follow Jesus for the first time. I can remember, like, vividly these points in my life when God was speaking to me, and he was speaking, like, so clearly. And have you ever sat in a room and you thought, man, like, God, I know you're talking just to me. And maybe that's you today, and your heart is just kind of like, you feel like it's like going to rip through your skin because it's pounding so hard in your chest. And maybe today is the day that you need to say, okay, I'm going to follow Jesus. I'm really going to give my life to him. I understand that that's where life is, and that's where hope is, and I see it in other people, and I want that. And if that's going to be the decision you're going to make today, in a few minutes, John's going to be at the back of the room, and he would love to talk with you about going public with your faith. Maybe today you just say, you know what, like, I'm with Jesus. Like, that's it. Like Steve mentioned earlier, you just want to say, like, I want to be baptized. I want to identify myself with Jesus. I want to say that he's my God. And there's other people in this room today that you need to decide, maybe today's the day you decide to follow Jesus for real. And so the chances are that you've been going through the motions, right? You want to be close enough to Jesus to kind of get the benefits of Jesus, to kind of be able to hang out and to sort of like say I'm a Christian and kind of like the good feeling stuff about Jesus. But when it comes to Jesus actually pushing into your life in weird ways, like Jesus wants to mess with your money, right? Or he wants to mess with stuff that's really comfortable, or decisions that you're really happy with making or you don't want to make. And Jesus kind of says, Jesus is the guy that's drawing the line in the sand. He's saying, like, hey, if you love me, let me mess with this, right? Let me tweak this. Let me touch this. Let me be involved in every part of your life in deep places. And you said, you know what? I don't really Like, I'll follow you, Jesus, kind of, but don't touch that stuff. Like, this stuff is mine. You can have Sunday and maybe one other like night during the week, and I'll pray before meals, right? I'll give you those spots of my life. And so maybe today is the day that you're saying, listen, I get that, and I need to follow Jesus for real. I want to follow Jesus in a way that he touches every part of my life, that my life is marked by that. And there's one kind of other group in this room that I feel like there's one other person that maybe you need to, there's a decision you need to make today, and that's to follow Jesus again. Maybe you said, I do, like over here. Maybe it was a couple years ago, maybe it was, I don't know, it could be a couple decades ago, and you said, I do to Jesus, and when you did, like you really meant it. Like you weren't just messing around, you didn't just not want to go to hell, but you said, I really do want to follow Jesus, I really do want you in my life, I really do know that I need you, and you said that here. But then over the course of time, you kind of took one step away from him, and then maybe there was just, okay, and maybe it was intentional, maybe it was unintentional. You see that, and then you took another step, and you just kind of moved farther and farther away from Jesus. And then finally you can kind of look back over the course of your life, or the course of time, and you can say, I knew I chose Jesus. I knew I said I do, and I meant it, but suddenly Jesus is over here, and you're over here. And here's the decisions you're making, and Jesus is over here. So maybe today is the day that you need to say, man, Jesus, I just want to follow you again. Like, I love you, I choose you, and I just want you to have all of me. You're renewing your vows. Let's think of it in that way. So why follow, right? In 23 again, he says, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. Jesus isn't messing around. He draws a line in the sand. He says, are you with me? And here's the cool thing. It's not just like I'm going to follow Jesus so I can live this terrible life and things are just going to be awful. I know he's going to mess with my money and he's going to want me to like love people and go places, and it's going to be like, that's not what he's talking about. I think when we really think about it, I mean, like when we really just put our hands around it, like where you can grab it, Jesus is saying in verse 24, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life will save it. He's saying like, this is real life. I mean, are you with me? Like, I just firmly believe that life with Jesus Christ, life walking alongside of Christ with open hands saying, I don't care if it's convenient, I don't care if I have control over it, I don't care if it's comfortable, God, because I know that you're good. And Jesus says, I will take that, I will take that life and I will make it so awesome. And I will just make it so rewarding as you walk alongside of me and as you know real life. Everything else, I believe, everything else other than completely surrender to Jesus is just this super cheap substitute. It doesn't even come close. Just any step that is not walking alongside of Jesus Christ is a terribly cheap substitute. So that's the invitation today. That's what we have the choice to do. In just a few minutes, we're going to take communion. The usher's going to come forward, and they're going to have the elements right here. They're going to have the cup that has the juice in it and the bread, and you're going to be able to come make a line and come forward and dip the bread in the juice. And that is Jesus, like, just representing for us in this super practical way. He knew that we needed it, right? Every Sunday that we gather together and we'd be reminded that he gave his body and his blood for us so that we could have life in him. I mean, real life is only found in Jesus Christ. And that's this like physical reminder that we can take this morning. So we encourage everyone, man, if you're a follower in Christ, you believe in Christ, come forward, take communion, be reminded that real life is only found in him. And then if you sit in one of the other camps today, man, if you say, I just need to like follow Jesus for the first time, like if that's you, if he's pressing on your heart and you'll know it, man, go to the back, talk to John, and say like, maybe you want to go public with your faith today and just say, proclaim like, I'm with Jesus. Like, I get it. I want to experience real life with him because I know it's only found in him. Do that at this time. And if you want to follow Jesus for real or follow Jesus again, maybe you're saying like, okay, I've been playing around, but I want to do it for real. Or you're saying, listen, I want to renew my vows to Jesus. I said I do. I really mean it. I want to be walking alongside of him. There's going to be the prayer team's going to be here at these tables around the room, and they would love to pray with you, to encourage you. If you need to make one of these choices, if God's pressed this on your heart today, don't mess around. Do it. God's talking to you. Let's choose Jesus today. Will you pray with me? And then I ask you guys just come forward for communion, move to the tables, or move to the back. God, we just thank you for who you are, and God, that you love us so much that you want us to experience real life. God, that real life is only found in you. Jesus, we just believe that it's only found in you. And I thank you that you give us joy and you give us peace and you give us hope. So Father God, I just ask over us as a body of believers today, Lord, that you would do something awesome, that you would move, God, that you would stir, and if you're stirring, God, that we'll respond. I ask this in the power of your name, Jesus. Amen.